The $15,000 bottle of Dom Perignon hit Amara's shoulder before she even saw it coming. She crashed into the champagne tower behind her, crystal glasses exploding around her as she hit the marble floor, her emerald gown tearing, her elbow splitting open against the sharp edge of a shattered flute. For a moment, the entire Grand Hyatt Seoul ballroom went silent. 300 of Korea's wealthiest elite CEOs, politicians, old money families dripping in diamonds, froze mid-conversation, mid-laugh, mid-sip, all eyes turning toward the commotion near the entrance. Amara looked up from the floor, champagne and blood mixing on her dark skin, at the man standing over her with contempt twisting his features. Marcus Wellington. Her ex-husband. The man who divorced her 4 years ago, taking everything, her savings, her late mother's house, her dignity, and leaving her with nothing but a maxed-out credit card and a baby she'd lose 3 weeks later because she couldn't afford prenatal care. "Stay down where you belong," Marcus snarled, loud enough for the crowd to hear. His new wife, a blonde socialite named Clarissa, clung to his arm, her face a mask of manufactured shock. "God, you're even more pathetic than I remembered. Did you actually think you could crash this event? Security should have stopped you at the door." Amara's hands trembled as she tried to push herself up, glass cutting into her palms. Her vision blurred from tears or shock, she couldn't tell. Marcus turned to the circle of Korean businessmen he'd been schmoozing, his voice dripping with false apology. "I'm so sorry, gentlemen. This is, well, she used to be my maid back in the States. Clearly, she's followed me here. Some people just can't accept when they've been left behind." Maid. The word hit harder than the bottle. Amara had been his wife for 3 years. Had worked 2 jobs to put him through business school. Had paid their rent, their bills, bought his clothes, his car, supported his dreams while he found himself. And now, in front of Seoul's most powerful people, he was calling her a maid. Laughter rippled through the crowd, polite, uncomfortable, but present. Some people turned away. Others whispered behind champagne flutes. A few pulled out phones. Amara finally managed to stand, her legs shaking, champagne dripping from her torn dress. Blood trickled down her arm from the gash on her elbow, staining the emerald silk darker. She should leave. Should run. Should disappear before the humiliation became worse. But her feet wouldn't move. Because Marcus had no idea who she was anymore. He had no idea that the broken woman he'd abandoned 4 years ago, the one who'd slept in her car with $23 in her bank account, who'd lost their baby alone in a charity hospital, who'd wanted to die, was gone. He had no idea that she now lived in a penthouse in Gangnam worth more than his parents' estate. He had no idea about the black card in her clutch with no spending limit. He had no idea about the ring on her finger, a flawless 5-carat diamond surrounded by emeralds, or what the name attached to that ring meant in this city. He had no idea that her last name was no longer Wellington. It was Kong. And in Seoul, that name made people bow. "You always were trash," Marcus continued, his voice louder now, emboldened by the audience. "I wasted 3 years of my life on you, and you couldn't even." Jagia. The single word, spoken in a voice like winter itself, cut through the ballroom like a blade. Every conversation stopped. Every head turned. And Amara's heart, despite everything, despite the blood and the pain and the humiliation burning through her chest, began to race. Because Kang Min-jun was walking toward her. Her husband. The man who controlled half of Seoul's underground empire and a quarter of its legitimate business. The man whose name appeared in Forbes Korea and police investigation files with equal frequency. The man who could end careers with a phone call and lives with a nod. The most dangerous man in South Korea. And he was looking at Marcus like he was already dead. Min-jun moved through the crowd with the fluid grace of a predator, his custom black Tom Ford suit fitting him like a second skin. 6 of his men materialized from the shadows, all in matching black suits, all clearly armed despite the formal setting. But Min-jun only had eyes for Amara. He reached her in seconds, his hands that had killed, that controlled an empire, that could break bones without effort, impossibly gentle as they cupped her face. "Are you hurt?" His Korean accented English was soft, meant only for her ears. His dark eyes scanned her torn dress, her bleeding elbow, the champagne staining her hair. His jaw clenched so hard she could see the muscle twitch. Who did this? Minjun, I'm fine, it's just. Who did this? It wasn't a question. Amara's eyes flicked to Marcus, who had gone from smug to confused to genuinely frightened in the span of 30 seconds. Minjun followed her gaze. Then he smiled. It was the most terrifying thing Amara had ever seen. Stay here, he murmured, pressing a soft kiss to her forehead, a gesture so tender it made her eyes sting with new tears. Then he turned, and the tenderness evaporated like it had never existed. He crossed to Marcus in 4 strides. Who the fuck are you? Marcus blustered, trying to maintain his bravado even as he took an unconscious step back. This doesn't concern you. This woman is. Minjun grabbed Marcus by the throat, lifted him off his feet with one hand, and slammed him against the marble pillar hard enough to crack it. Clarissa screamed. Someone dropped a glass. No one moved to help. My name, Minjun said, his voice carrying through the silent ballroom, is Kong Minjun. The woman you just assaulted is my wife. Do you understand what that means? Marcus's feet dangled 6 inches off the ground, his face turning red as he clawed at Minjun's grip. I didn't, she didn't say. It means, Minjun continued, as if Marcus hadn't spoken, that you just made the worst mistake of your life. He held Marcus there for another moment, long enough for the message to be clear, long enough for fear to completely replace arrogance in Marcus's eyes, then dropped him. Marcus collapsed to the floor, gasping, his expensive suit rumpled, his dignity shattered. Minjun didn't look at him again. He returned to Amara, shrugging off his suit jacket and draping it over her shoulders, covering her torn dress. His hand found the small of her back, steady and warm. We're leaving, he said quietly. Then, louder, to the room, anyone who posts about this online or speaks about my wife disrespectfully will answer to me personally. I trust I'm clear. Silence. Then, slowly, people began to nod. As Minjun guided Amara toward the exit, his men forming a protective circle around them, she heard Marcus's voice, weak, confused, desperate, call out behind them. Wait. What do you mean, your wife? Amara, what the hell is going on? Minjun paused, glanced back over his shoulder. In approximately 12 hours, he said conversationally, you're going to receive several phone calls. The first will be from your fiancé's father, withdrawing his business partnership and his daughter's engagement. The second will be from your company's board of directors, requesting your immediate resignation. The third will be from your bank, informing you that your accounts have been frozen pending investigation into financial irregularities. Marcus's face went white. You can't. You have no right to. I have every right. Minjun's smile was cold. You put your hands on my wife. You humiliated her in public. You called her a maid when she is a queen. He paused at the doorway, Amara safe in the circle of his arm. By tomorrow morning, Marcus Wellington, you'll understand what it feels like to lose everything. Just like you made her feel 4 years ago. But I didn't know. You should have treated her well when she was yours. Now she's mine. And I protect what's mine. The ballroom doors closed behind them, cutting off Marcus's protests. As they walked through the hotel lobby toward the private elevator, Amara finally found her voice. That was, you didn't have to. Yes, Minjun interrupted gently, I did. And I'm not done. She looked up at him, this terrifying, powerful man who'd somehow chosen her, who'd married her 6 months ago in a small ceremony that still felt like a dream. What are you going to do? His eyes met hers, dark and endless and absolutely certain. I'm going to destroy him. Completely. Systematically. Thoroughly. He pressed the elevator button, then turned to face her fully, his hands gentle on her shoulders despite the fury still burning in his eyes. But first, he said softly, I'm going to take you home. I'm going to clean these cuts. I'm going to hold you while you process what just happened. And tomorrow, when you're ready, you're going to tell me every single thing he did to you. Why? Because I need to know exactly how much pain to cause him in return. The elevator doors opened. Before we go further, Minjun added, his voice warming slightly, I need you to understand something, Amara. That man, he had his chance to treasure you. He threw it away. He tried to break you. He cupped her face, his thumb brushing away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. But you survived him. You became stronger, more successful, more incredible than he could ever be. And now you're standing beside me, the most powerful man in the city, not because I saved you, but because you saved yourself first. You earned your place here. Minjun. I love you, he said simply. And anyone who hurts you will learn what that means. As the elevator carried them up to their penthouse, Amara leaned against her husband's chest and allowed herself, for the first time in 4 years, to feel safe. She had no idea that Marcus was just the beginning. She had no idea about the enemies already circling, jealous of her position, resentful of her presence beside Kang Minjun. She had no idea that in 3 days, everything would change again. But for now, wrapped in her husband's arms, listening to his heartbeat steady and strong beneath her ear, she let herself believe that maybe, finally, she could stop running from her past. If you're already hooked on Amara and Minjun's story, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because this story is about to get even more intense. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens when Marcus realizes exactly who he messed with. But to understand how Amara went from sleeping in her car to becoming the wife of Seoul's most dangerous man, we need to go back. Back to where it all started. Back to the worst day of her life. For years ago, Amara Johnson thought she had everything figured out. She was 26 years old, living in Baltimore, working as a nurse at Johns Hopkins Hospital during the day and bartending at an upscale downtown restaurant 3 nights a week. It wasn't glamorous, but it was hers. She had a small apartment in Federal Hill, a 10-year-old Honda Civic that ran most of the time, and a fiancé who promised her the world. Marcus Wellington came from old money, the kind of family that had streets named after them, that summered in the Hamptons and wintered in Aspen. His trust fund could have supported them both comfortably. But Marcus wanted to make his own way. Wanted to prove himself to his father. Wanted to start a tech company that would revolutionize social media marketing. And Amara, raised by a single mother who'd taught her that a strong woman supports her man's dreams, believed him. So she worked. God, did she work. She paid their rent $400 a month for a 2-bedroom in Mount Vernon because Marcus needed space for his home office. She paid their utilities, their groceries, their car insurance. She bought his clothes because he needed to look successful for investor meetings. She even paid for his gym membership because he said staying fit was networking. For 3 years, while Marcus attended conferences and business lunches and came home at midnight smelling like expensive whiskey and cheaper perfume, Amara worked herself to exhaustion. Just a little longer, babe, he'd say, kissing her forehead while she counted pills at 2 a.m., trying to stay awake for her 6 a.m. shift. Once the company takes off, I'll take care of you. You'll never have to work again. I promise. She believed him. Even when her mother got sick, stage 4 breast cancer, moving fast, and Amara had to take out a loan against her childhood home to pay for treatment that insurance wouldn't cover. Even when her mother died 6 months later, and Marcus missed the funeral because of an unmissable investor pitch. Even when she came home one day and found their bank account, her bank account, with her name, filled with her money completely emptied. $47,000. Gone. Every penny she'd saved. Every extra shift she'd worked. Every dollar she'd scraped together while living on ramen and hope. Gone. And so was Marcus. Amara remembered that day with the kind of clarity that trauma burns into your brain. She'd called him 17 times. Texted 42 times. The messages went from confused to panicked to furious to begging. Where are you? Marcus, the money is gone. All of it. Did someone hack the account? Marcus, answer your phone, please. I'm scared. Just tell me what's happening. I love you. Whatever this is, we can fix it. Just come home. He finally responded at 11 p.m. A text message. Not even a phone call. I'm done, Amara. This wasn't working. You're too needy, too clingy, too much. I've moved on. Don't contact me again. The money was compensation for wasting 3 years of my life. She'd read that message sitting on the floor of their apartment, his apartment now, since his name was on the lease, surrounded by moving boxes she couldn't afford to fill because she didn't have anywhere to move to. Her hands shook so hard she dropped the phone. Then she saw the email. Marcus had sent it hours earlier, probably while she was at work, saving lives and thinking about what to make him for dinner. A legal document. Professionally drafted. He was suing her for $30,000, claiming she'd taken loans from him during their relationship that she'd never repaid. Loans that didn't exist. Loans that were the opposite of their reality. But he had his father's lawyers. He had money for court fees and legal battles. She had $127 in her checking account and a credit card maxed out from her mother's funeral expenses. The next 3 months were a blur of horror. The eviction notice came first. Marcus's father owned the building. They gave her 72 hours. Her car was repossessed next. Apparently Marcus had put her name on a loan she'd never signed, then stopped making payments. She lost her bartending job when she broke down crying in front of customers, unable to hold it together anymore. And then she found out she was pregnant. For months along, she'd been so exhausted, so stressed, so focused on survival that she'd missed the signs. The fatigue she'd attributed to double shifts. The nausea she'd blamed on grief and anxiety. But there it was. A baby. Their baby. She'd sat in that Planned Parenthood clinic bathroom, staring at the positive test, and felt something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. Terrifying, fragile, desperate hope. She tried calling Marcus one more time. Left a voicemail. I'm pregnant. I know you don't want to hear from me, but you should know. I'm 4 months along. It's yours. I don't want money, I thought you should know you're going to be a father. He never called back. Instead, his lawyer sent a cease and desist letter threatening legal action if she continued to harass him with false paternity claims. Amara moved into her car 3 weeks later. A friend from the hospital let her shower at her place twice a week. She ate free food from the hospital cafeteria, sneaking extra portions when she could. She applied for Medicaid, for food stamps, for every assistance program she could find. And she worked. She picked up shifts at a walk-in clinic in Dundalk. She did overnight caretaking for elderly patients who needed someone to make sure they didn't fall. She donated plasma for $50 a pop even though she probably shouldn't have, given the pregnancy. She survived. Barely. She was 6 months pregnant, living in her car, eating 1 meal a day, when it happened. She woke up at 3 a.m. in a Walmart parking lot, cramping so badly she couldn't breathe. Blood soaked through her clothes, pooling on the back seat. She drove herself to the ER, crying, begging, praying to a God she wasn't sure was listening. Please. Please don't take this too. Please let my baby be okay. But the ultrasound screen was silent. No heartbeat. No movement. Just stillness. I'm so sorry, the doctor said, and Amara heard the words from very far away, like she was underwater, drowning in grief so profound it didn't feel real. Her daughter, because she'd been a girl, they told her later, was gone. Amara named her anyway. Zara Grace Johnson. Because even though she'd never take a breath, never open her eyes, never grow up, she'd existed. She'd been real. She'd been loved. The hospital discharged Amara 6 hours later with a pamphlet on grief counseling she couldn't afford and a bill for $14,000 she'd never be able to pay. She sat in her car in the hospital parking lot, staring at nothing, and realized she had 2 choices. She could die, or she could get angry. She chose anger. For the next year and a half, Amara rebuilt herself from ashes. She worked every shift she could find. She slept in her car, then on a friend's couch, then in a room she rented for $400 a month in a house with 5 other people and 1 bathroom. She saved every penny. She went to therapy at a free clinic, working through the trauma, the loss, the betrayal. Learning that what happened to her wasn't her fault. Learning that she was allowed to be angry. Learning that she could survive anything. And she planned. She applied for nursing positions overseas, places that would pay relocation, places far enough from Baltimore that she'd never accidentally run into Marcus Wellington and his perfect new life. 18 months after losing Zara, Amara accepted a position at Samsung Medical Center in Seoul, South Korea. They paid for her flight. They provided housing for the first 3 months. They offered a salary that, in Korea, would let her save money, rebuild her credit, start over. So she went. She left America, the country that had taken her mother, her money, her baby, her dignity, and boarded a plane to a place where no one knew her story, where she could be anyone she wanted to be. She thought she was running away. She had no idea she was running toward her destiny. Seoul in winter was brutal. The cold cut through even the thickest coat, and Amara, raised in Maryland winters, thought she was prepared. She wasn't. But the city was beautiful. All neon lights and ancient palaces, street food vendors and luxury boutiques existing side by side. The hospital was state-of-the-art. Her colleagues were welcoming, and slowly, so slowly she almost didn't notice, Amara began to heal. She made friends. She learned basic Korean. She explored neighborhoods on her days off, trying foods she couldn't pronounce, getting lost and finding her way back. She started to feel human again. And then, 6 months after arriving in Seoul, she met Kang Min-jun. Though she didn't know his name yet. Didn't know anything except that the most beautiful man she'd ever seen had just collapsed in the hospital lobby. It was 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. Amara was pulling a double shift in the ER, exhausted but functional, when the commotion started. 6 men in expensive suits burst through the emergency entrance, half carrying, half dragging a 7th man between them. Blood soaked through his white shirt, dark and spreading. His face was pale, his breathing shallow. "Help him," one of the men shouted in Korean. "Please, you have to help him." Amara didn't hesitate. She grabbed a gurney, calling for a doctor in her accented Korean. "What happened?" There was an accident. "Please, just save him." It wasn't an accident. Amara could see the knife wound in his side, the defensive cuts on his hands. This was a stabbing, probably an attempted murder. She should call the police. But something in the men's eyes, desperation, fear, and something else she couldn't name, made her pause. "Exam room 3, she said instead. "Now." They rushed him in. For the next 45 minutes, Amara worked alongside Dr. Kim, stopping the bleeding, cleaning the wound, stitching layers of muscle and skin back together. The man, unconscious through most of it, mercifully, had been lucky. The knife had missed major organs by centimeters. "He'll live," Dr. Kim finally announced. "But he needs rest. No stress. No physical activity for at least 3 weeks." The men in suits visibly relaxed. One of them, older, with silver at his temples, approached Amara. He bowed deeply, formally. "You saved his life," he said in English, his accent thick but understandable. "We won't forget this. If you ever need anything at all." He pressed a business card into her hand. Amara glanced at it. "No name, just a phone number." "I was just doing my job," she said. "No." The man's eyes were serious. "You asked no questions. You didn't call police. You saved him when others might have turned away. That is more than a job." Before Amara could respond, the patient stirred. His eyes opened, dark, bottomless, and even half-conscious from blood loss and pain medication, intensely focused. They found Amara immediately. "Who?" His voice was rough, barely a whisper. "Who are you?" "I'm Amara. I'm a nurse. You were stabbed. You're going to be okay." He stared at her for a long moment, like he was memorizing her face. "Amara," he repeated slowly, tasting the syllables. "Beautiful name." Then he passed out again. She didn't expect to see him again. But 2 days later, flowers arrived at the hospital. Not a small bouquet, a floor-to-ceiling arrangement of white roses and peonies that took up half the nurse's station. The card read, "Thank you for my life. MJ." Her colleagues teased her mercilessly. A week after that, a gift basket appeared. Expensive teas, imported chocolates, things Amara couldn't even identify. Then a donation, $50, 000 to the hospital's emergency fund, MAID in her name. Who is this guy? Her friend Yuna asked, eyes wide. And is he single? Amara had no idea. But 3 weeks after the stabbing, she found out. She was leaving the hospital after a night shift, exhausted and craving her bed, when a black Mercedes pulled up beside her. The back window rolled down. And there he was. The patient from the ER, now fully healed, wearing a suit that probably cost more than her annual salary. His dark hair was styled back, his face no longer pale, but golden-toned and handsome in a way that made her breath catch. Amara SSI, he said, and hearing him speak Korean made something in her chest flutter. May I give you a ride home? I don't even know your name. He smiled. Kong Minjun. And I owe you my life. You don't owe me anything. I was doing my job. Then let me thank you properly. Coffee? Dinner? A conversation where I'm not bleeding to death. Amara should have said no. She'd sworn off men, sworn off relationships, sworn off trust. She was in Seoul to heal, to rebuild, not to get tangled up with a man who showed up with bodyguards and mysterious stab wounds. But there was something in his eyes. A loneliness that mirrored her own. A weight that matched the one she carried. Coffee, she heard herself say. Just coffee. His smile widened. Just coffee. She got in the car. And everything changed. Minjun courted her the old-fashioned way. Coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into walks along the Han River. Walks turned into museum visits, cooking lessons, late-night conversations that lasted until sunrise. He was careful with her. Gentle. Patient in ways that made her suspicious at first. What man was this perfect? Until she realized he was just as damaged as she was. He told her about his family. How his father had built an empire, legitimate and otherwise. How his older brother, Kang Daehan, had always been jealous, always been cruel. How their father's death 2 years ago had fractured everything. Daehan wants control of the organization, Minjun said one night, 3 months into their relationship. They were in his penthouse, and yes, she'd figured out by then that he was wealthy, powerful, and probably dangerous, looking out over the Seoul skyline. He thinks I'm weak. That I care too much. That father made a mistake choosing me as heir. Are you? Amara asked. Weak. Minjun turned to look at her, his expression serious. I don't know anymore. I'm tired, Amara. Tired of the violence, the paranoia, the constant war. My father ruled through fear. Daehan wants to rule through cruelty. I just want. He trailed off. What? Peace. Something real. Someone who sees me as a man, not a weapon. Amara understood that. God, did she understand that? She told him her story that night. All of it. Marcus, the money, the baby she'd lost, the months in her car, the grief that still woke her up at 3 a.m. sometimes, making it hard to breathe. Minjun listened without interrupting. And when she finished, when she was crying and couldn't look at him because surely he'd see her as broken now as too much, he pulled her into his arms and held her. You're the strongest person I've ever met, he whispered into her hair. And anyone who couldn't see that is a fool. 3 months later, he proposed. Simple. Private. Just the two of them in his living room. No grand gestures, no performance. I know it's fast, he said, holding a ring that probably cost more than her car, a flawless diamond surrounded by emeralds. I know you have every reason not to trust this. But Amara, I have never felt more human, more whole, more hopeful than I do when I'm with you. Marry me. Let me spend the rest of my life proving that not all men are Marcus Wellington. Let me show you what you deserve. She should have said no. Should have said it was too fast, too much, too risky. But when she looked in his eyes, she didn't see Marcus. She didn't see a man who had taken leave. She saw someone as scarred and careful as she was, someone offering her a future instead of taking her past. Yes, she whispered. They married 2 weeks later in a small ceremony at a Buddhist temple, just them and 2 witnesses. No fanfare. No society pages. Just 2 broken people choosing to heal together. For 6 months, it was perfect. Minjun taught her about his world, the legitimate businesses, the underground operations, the complicated politics of running an organization like his. She taught him about hers, medicine, American culture, how to make her grandmother's cornbread. They built a life. And Amara finally felt safe. But then Marcus Wellington came to Seoul. Minjun had warned her it might happen. The business world was smaller than people thought, and Marcus's father had connections in Asia. If you see him, Minjun had said, stay away. Don't engage. Let me handle it. I don't want you to handle anything, Amara had replied. He's my past. I've moved on. I don't care about him anymore. She'd believe that. Until she saw him at the Chosen Hotel charity gala, his arm around his new fiancée, his laugh carrying across the ballroom like it used to when they were happy. And she realized that moving on and being healed were two different things. Seeing him brought everything back. The humiliation. The poverty. The loss. The tiny grave she'd left behind in Baltimore with flowers she couldn't afford. Minjun had been in a meeting, running late to the gala. She'd arrived early because she was on the event committee, helping to organize. She should have left when she saw Marcus. But her feet wouldn't move. And then Marcus saw her. The recognition in his eyes turned quickly to contempt. He whispered something to Clarissa, his new fiancée, and started walking toward Amara with that smirk she'd once thought was charming. Well, he said loudly. Amara Johnson. What are the odds? She couldn't speak. Her throat had closed. You look different. Expensive dress, nice jewelry. Finally found some desperate guy to take care of you. People were starting to watch. I'm not, this isn't. Oh, don't be embarrassed. Marcus's voice got louder, performing now. We all do what we have to do to survive, right? Though I have to say, I'm surprised they let you into an event like this. Did you sneak in through the service entrance? That's when Jean Woo, one of Minjun's business partners, walked by. Marcus grabbed him. Excuse me, sir, I think there's been a mistake. This woman used to be my maid back in the States. She's obviously crashed this event. Security should. Jean Woo's face went white. Mr. Wellington, I don't think you. But Marcus was already pulling Amara into his conversation circle, pointing at her like an object, saying words like help and maid and pathetic. And then someone jostled her from behind. And she stumbled forward. And Marcus, annoyed at being interrupted, shoved her. Not hard. Just a dismissive push. But Amara was in heels, off balance, shocked. She fell backward into the champagne tower. Everything after that happened exactly like I told you. The bottle. The glass. The blood. The humiliation. Marcus standing over her, calling her pathetic. And then Minjun arriving, her husband, her protector, the man who'd promised she'd never have to face her demons alone, and making good on that promise in the most public, terrifying, perfect way possible. But here's what Amara didn't know, lying in bed that night after they'd returned to the penthouse, after Minjun had cleaned her cuts and held her while she cried, after he'd promised her that Marcus would pay. Marcus Wellington wasn't the only threat. Because 3 months ago, Kang Dae-han, Minjun's older brother, the man who'd tried to kill him 2 years ago, had escaped from the psychiatric facility where he'd been imprisoned after the stabbing attempt. And Dae-han had been watching his younger brother build a life. Watching him fall in love. Watching him marry a foreigner, an outsider, a woman who made him soft. Watching Amara become Minjun's weakness. And in 3 days, Dae-han would make his move. But tonight, Amara slept in her husband's arms, still believing that the worst was behind her. She had no idea it was just beginning. The next morning, Amara woke to an empty bed and the smell of coffee. She found Minjun in his study, already dressed in a charcoal suit, phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Korean. When he saw her in the doorway, wearing one of his shirts, her natural hair loose around her shoulders, the bandage still on her elbow, his entire expression softened. He ended the call mid-sentence. You should be resting, he said, crossing to her in 3 strides. His hands found her waist, familiar and warm. How do you feel? Like I got thrown into a champagne tower by my asshole ex-husband. A ghost of a smile. Accurate assessment. She touched his face, tracing the sharp line of his jaw. What were you doing? Making phone calls. Minjun. Keeping promises. He kissed her forehead, then her nose, then her lips, soft and careful, like she might break. Come eat breakfast, he said. Then we need to talk. The penthouse dining room overlooked the Han River, morning sunlight turning the water gold. A spread that would feed 10 people covered the table: kimchi jjigae, rice, grilled mackerel, fresh fruit, and somehow, despite this being Korea, perfect scrambled eggs and turkey bacon. You called Yuna, Amara said, recognizing her friend's cooking style. I called everyone. Minjun poured her coffee, already prepared the way she liked it: cream, 1 sugar. Your favorite foods from your favorite people. Comfort through carbohydrates. Despite everything, she smiled. They ate in comfortable silence for a while. This was one of the things she loved about him. He didn't need to fill every moment with words. Didn't need her to perform happiness or pretend she was fine. He just existed beside her, steady and present. Finally, over his 3rd cup of black coffee, Minjun spoke. Marcus Wellington's engagement was terminated at 6 a.m. this morning. Amara's fork paused halfway to her mouth. What? Clarissa's father, Jonathan Reed, owns Reed Industries, called him personally. Said he couldn't associate with a man who assaults women at charity events. There's video, apparently. Someone posted it online before I could contain it. It's been viewed 2.3 million times. Minjun, I didn't want. At 7 a.m., his company's board of directors held an emergency meeting. He's been placed on indefinite leave pending an investigation into financial mismanagement and embezzlement. How did you? At 8 a.m., 3 of his major investors pulled out of his latest venture. Something about not wanting to be associated with his brand. Minjun set down his coffee cup, his eyes meeting hers across the table. At 8:45 a.m., his bank froze his personal accounts. Seems there are questions about where $47,000 came from 4 years ago. Questions about a woman named Amara Johnson who filed a complaint about stolen funds, but couldn't afford to pursue legal action. Amara's breath caught. You found it? The money. I found everything. Bank records, email trails, testimony from his former assistant who knew what he did. It's all documented now. All legal. All provable. What does that mean? It means by the end of the week, you'll have your money back. With interest. With damages. With everything you're owed. Tears burned behind her eyes. I don't know what to say. Minjun stood, came around the table, knelt beside her chair. His hands covered hers, warm and steady. Say you trust me. Say you believe that I will never let anyone hurt you again. Say you understand that you're not alone anymore. I trust you, she whispered. I believe you. I know I'm not alone. Good. He kissed her knuckles. Because we're not done. Over the next 3 days, Amara watched her husband systematically dismantle Marcus Wellington's life with the precision of a surgeon and the ruthlessness of a king. Phone calls were made. Meetings were held. Money changed hands. And Marcus, who'd spent 4 years living comfortably on her stolen savings, who'd gotten engaged to a billionaire's daughter, who'd built a career on lies and charm, watched his world crumble. His apartment lease was terminated. His country club membership revoked. His father's law firm dropped him as a client. Job offers evaporated. Friends stopped returning calls. Social media turned brutal. And through it all, Amara felt nothing. Not satisfaction. Not joy. Not even anger. Just a quiet sense of justice, like a wound finally closing after years of bleeding. Is this what you wanted? Minjun asked her on the 3rd night, holding her in their bed, his fingers tracing idle patterns on her shoulder. I wanted him to know what he did to me, she said quietly. I wanted him to understand that actions have consequences. That you can't just destroy people and walk away. And now? Now I want to move forward. I want to stop thinking about him. I want. She turned to face him, her hand on his chest, feeling his heartbeat. I want to focus on us. On building something good. On being happy. Minjun's smile was soft in the darkness. Then that's what we'll do. But the universe, it seemed, had other plans. The first sign something was wrong came on the 4th day. Amara was at the hospital, finishing her shift, when Yuna pulled her aside. "There's a man asking about you," her friend whispered, her face tight with worry. Korean guy, expensive suit, very polite. But something felt off. He wanted to know your schedule, where you live, if you're close with your husband. Ice flooded Amara's veins. "What did you tell him?" "Nothing. I said I didn't know you well." But Amara, he knew things. Knew you were married to Kang Minjun. Knew about Baltimore. Knew about Marcus. What did he look like? Tall. Maybe late 30s. Handsome, but in a cold way. He had a scar here. Yuna touched her left eyebrow. And when he smiled, it didn't reach his eyes. Amara's phone was out before Yuna finished speaking. Minjun answered on the first ring. "Jagiya. Someone was at the hospital asking about me." Korean man, scar on his eyebrow, knew too much. Silence. Then, "Where are you right now?" "Still at work." "In the break room." "Stay there. Don't leave the building. I'm sending Jaiwoo and 3 others. They'll be there in 8 minutes. "Minjun, who?" "It's Daehan." His voice was tight, controlled, but she could hear the fear underneath. "My brother. He's found you." Jaiwoo, Minjun's head of security, the silver-haired man from the ER 2 years ago, arrived in 6 minutes with 4 armed guards. "Mrs. Kang," he said formally, bowing. "We need to leave. Now." The drive back to the penthouse took 25 minutes through Seoul traffic. Jaiwoo drove like a man fleeing death, weaving between cars, running red lights, constantly checking mirrors. 2 black SUVs followed them, more security. Amara's hands were shaking. "Tell me about Daehan," she said quietly. Jaiwoo's jaw tightened. "It's not my place. He's coming after me. That makes it my place." A pause. Then, Kang Daehan is Mr. Kang's older brother. He was supposed to inherit the organization when their father died. But their father chose Minjun instead. Said Daehan was too cruel, too unstable. What did he do? He tried to kill Minjun. The stabbing 2 years ago, that was Daehan. He hired men, set up an ambush. If you hadn't saved him that night. Jaiwoo's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Daehan was sent to a psychiatric facility. Maximum security. But 3 months ago, he escaped. Why didn't Minjun tell me? Because he didn't want you to be afraid. Because he had men searching, thought he'd find Daehan before. Jaiwoo trailed off. Before Daehan found me. Yes. Minjun was waiting when they arrived at the penthouse. He pulled Amara into his arms the moment she stepped off the elevator, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. "I'm sorry," he said into her hair. "I'm so sorry. I should have told you. Should have warned you. Should have." "Stop." She pulled back, looking up at him. "What's happening? What does he want?" Minjun led her to the living room. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, and for a moment Amara thought about how exposed they were, how easy it would be for someone to. "The windows are bulletproof," Minjun said, reading her mind. "The penthouse is a fortress. You're safe here." "I don't feel safe." "I know." He sat beside her, taking her hands. "Daehan wants the organization. He thinks if he kills me, he'll inherit everything. But he's wrong. Our father's will was very clear. If I die, everything goes to charity. The organization dissolves. So why come after me? Because he knows the easiest way to destroy me isn't to kill me." Minjun's eyes were dark with something Amara had never seen before, genuine fear. "It's to kill you." The words hung in the air between them. "He wants to break you first," Amara said slowly, understanding dawning. "Make you watch me die. Make you suffer." "Yes." "What do we do?" "You stay here. Protected. Guarded 24/7. You don't go to work, don't go out, don't." "No." Minjun blinked. "Amara. I'm not going to hide in a tower while your brother hunts us. I'm not going to be a prisoner in my own home." She stood, pacing. "What's your plan? To find him first?" "Yes." "How long will that take?" "I don't know. Days. Weeks." He's careful, paranoid. He's been planning this for months. Then we need to make him come to us. Absolutely not. Minjun. No. He stood, his voice firm. I will not use you as bait. I will not risk your life. I've already lost too much, I won't lose you. Amara crossed to him, cupping his face in her hands. "You won't lose me," she said quietly. "But we can't live like this. Waiting, hiding, afraid. That's not living. That's just surviving, and I've done enough of that for one lifetime." "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting we face him together. On our terms. With a plan." Minjun stared at her for a long moment. Then, despite everything, he laughed, short and disbelieving. "You're insane." "I'm strategic." She smiled. "I learned from the best." They spent the next 2 days fortifying. Amara didn't go to work. She called in, citing a family emergency. Minjun doubled security throughout their building. Jaiwoo coordinated with police contacts, with intelligence networks, with every source they had. And slowly, a picture emerged. Daehan wasn't working alone. He had supporters, old guard members who'd been loyal to his father, who thought Minjun was too soft, too Western-influenced, too willing to go legitimate. They wanted the old ways back. Violence, fear, absolute control. And they were willing to kill for it. "There's going to be an event next week," Minjun said on the evening of the 6th day. They were in his study, papers and photographs spread across his desk. The annual gathering of the 5 families, all the major organizations in Seoul. It's neutral ground, sacred tradition. No violence allowed. Will Daehan be there? He has to be. It's how he'll try to claim leadership. He'll make his case, argue that I'm unfit, that he should take over. So we go. Amara. We go, she repeated firmly. Together. And we end this. Minjun studied her face, this woman who'd survived poverty and betrayal and loss, who'd crossed an ocean to escape her pain, who'd somehow ended up beside him in this impossible life. "You're sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything. If we do this, you follow my lead. You stay close. You trust me. I always trust you." He pulled her into his lap, his arms wrapping around her waist, his face buried in her neck. "I love you," he murmured. "More than power, more than the organization, more than my own life. If anything happens, nothing's going to happen." She kissed his temple. "We've both survived worse than this. And we're not alone anymore." But what Amara and Minjun didn't know, what they couldn't have known, was that Daehan had already made his first move. Because while they were planning and fortifying and preparing for next week's gathering, Daehan had found Marcus Wellington. Found him drunk in a cheap hotel in Itaewon, bitter and broken and desperate for revenge against the woman who'd ruined his life. And Daehan, who understood revenge better than anyone, made Marcus an offer he couldn't refuse. "You want Amara Johnson to suffer?" Daehan had asked, sliding an envelope across the bar. "Help me, and you'll get to watch." Marcus had opened the envelope. Inside, $50,000 cash and a photograph. Amara, leaving the Samsung Medical Center. Unguarded. Vulnerable. And written on the back in neat handwriting, Sunday, 3 p.m. She'll be alone. Marcus had looked up at the man with the scar on his eyebrow, at the cold smile that promised violence. "What do I have to do?" "If you're on the edge of your seat right now, make sure you've hit that like button. Drop a comment and tell me, should Amara and Minjun trust Marcus isn't involved, or is he about to become their biggest problem? Subscribe and turn on notifications because what happens next is going to blow your mind." Sunday morning arrived bright and cold. Amara woke early, Minjun's arm heavy across her waist, his breathing deep and steady. For a moment, she just watched him sleep, this powerful, dangerous man who somehow looked younger in rest, almost vulnerable. She thought about the week ahead. The gathering. The confrontation with Daehan. The risk. But more than that, she thought about how far she'd come. For years ago, she'd been sleeping in her car, broken and hopeless. Now she was lying in a penthouse, married to a man who loved her, planning to face down his enemies like a queen instead of a victim. The transformation felt impossible. It felt earned. "You're thinking too loud," Minjun mumbled, his eyes still closed. "I can feel the thoughts from here." She laughed softly. "Sorry." He pulled her closer, kissing her shoulder. "What's on your mind?" "How different my life is now. How grateful I am. How terrified I am of losing it." "You won't lose it." "How can you be sure?" He opened his eyes then, dark and serious and absolutely certain. Because I won't let that happen. Because we're stronger together than Daehan is with an army. Because you survived Marcus Wellington and months of hell and losing your daughter, and if you can survive that, you can survive anything. Tears stung her eyes. You always know what to say. That's because I know you. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. Now come on. Jai was making breakfast, and if we're late, he'll get that disappointed look on his face. They got up, got dressed, Amara in comfortable clothes, Minjun in jeans and a sweater, both of them pretending this was a normal Sunday. The security team was already in the kitchen when they arrived. Jaiwoo at the stove, 3 others at the table, all armed but relaxed. This was Amara's life now. Bodyguards at breakfast. Guns next to coffee cups. Danger as a constant companion. She should hate it. But somehow, surrounded by these men who'd die for Minjun without question, who'd adopted her as one of their own, who made terrible jokes and worse coffee, she felt like she belonged. At 2:45 p.m., Amara's phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. But something, instinct, curiosity, fate, made her swipe to accept. Hello. Amara. The voice was female, American, panicked. Oh my God, please, you have to help me. Who is this? It's Clarissa. Clarissa Reed. Marcus's ex-fiancé. Please, I know you have no reason to help me, but I'm at the Itaewon station and there are men following me and I think they're going to. The line went dead. Amara's blood went cold. She found Minjun in his study, showed him the call log. It's a trap, he said immediately. I know. You're not going. If it's a trap, it means Daehan's making his move. If it's real, an innocent woman might die. Amara. Either way, we need to go. Minjun stared at her for 3 long seconds. Then he grabbed his phone, started making calls. Jaiwoo, assemble everyone. Full tactical gear. We're going to Itaewon. They arrived at Itaewon Station 25 minutes later with 12 armed men, 3 vehicles, and a plan that was mostly, don't let Amara die. The station was crowded, tourists and locals mixing, street vendors calling out, K-pop blasting from nearby shops. Normal Sunday chaos. Too normal. I don't like this, Jaiwoo muttered, scanning the crowd. Too many civilians. Too many variables. Where would she be? Minjun asked Amara. She said the station. Maybe inside? Or there. Minjun pointed. Clarissa Reed stood near the subway entrance, looking terrified, her phone pressed to her ear. She was alone. Vulnerable. And 30 feet behind her, trying to blend into the crowd but failing, were 2 men in black jackets. Hold positions, Minjun ordered his team. Then, to Amara, stay in the car. Minjun. Please. For me. Just this once, let me protect you without argument. She wanted to fight. But the look in his eyes, desperate and loving and terrified, made her nod. Be careful. Always. He kissed her fast and hard, then got out of the car. Amara watched through the tinted windows as Minjun approached Clarissa. Watched as the American woman spotted him, relief flooding her face. Watched as Minjun spoke to her calmly, gestured toward the car. Watched as the 2 men in black jackets moved closer. And then, everything went wrong at once. A white van screeched up beside their car. The door slid open. Men poured out 5, 6, 7 of them, all armed, all moving with military precision toward Minjun. It's an ambush. Jaiwoo shouted. Protect. But they weren't moving toward Minjun. They were moving toward the car. Toward Amara. Time slowed down. Amara saw Minjun's head snap around, saw the exact moment he realized the trap wasn't for him, it was for her. Saw him start running, shouting orders in Korean, his hand going for the gun at his back. Saw Jaiwoo throw himself between the van and the car, weapon already drawn. Saw the men approaching, saw their faces, cold, professional, paid to do a job. And in the very back, half hidden in the van's shadows, she saw him. Kang Daehan. He looked exactly like Minjun, same height, same bone structure, same dark eyes. But where Minjun's eyes held warmth and pain and humanity, Daehan's eyes were empty. He smiled when he saw Amara see him. Then he raised a gun. The first shot shattered the car window. Amara threw herself sideways, glass raining down, her ears ringing. Training from hospital active shooter drills kicked in: get low, stay low, find cover. The second shot hit where her head had been. Amara. Minjun's voice, raw with terror. Jaiwo returned fire, and suddenly the street erupted into chaos. Civilians screaming, running. Vendors abandoning their carts. Tourists diving into shops. And in the middle of it all, a war. Minjun's men against Daehan's mercenaries, gunfire echoing off buildings, Seoul's nice Sunday afternoon turning into a battlefield. Amara's door was wrenched open. Rough hands grabbed her arms, dragging her out of the car. She fought, kicking, scratching, biting, but there were too many of them, too strong. Let her go. Minjun's voice, closer now. A gunshot. One of the men holding Amara crumpled. She broke free, started running toward Minjun, toward safety, and was clotheslined from behind. She hit the pavement hard, all the air leaving her lungs. Tasted blood. Felt hands in her hair, dragging her backward. Got her, someone shouted. No. Minjun's voice was pure anguish. Daehan, please, she has nothing to do with this. Take me instead. And then Daehan was there, stepping over bodies, his own men, Minjun's men. Amara couldn't tell anymore, with that empty smile. But little brother, he said in Korean accented English, that's exactly the point. She has everything to do with this. He crouched beside Amara, grabbed her chin, forced her to look at him. You made him soft. You made him weak. You made him think he could have a normal life, a family, love. Daehan's grip tightened, bruising. But men like us don't get happy endings. Men like us get power and blood and nothing else. You're wrong, Amara choked out. He's stronger than you because he can love. You're just broken. Daehan's smile widened. Maybe, but at least I'm alive. He raised his gun, pressed it to her temple. And Minjun. Minjun stopped fighting. Just stopped. Completely. Lowered his weapon, raised his hands. Don't. His voice cracked. Please, Daehan. I'm begging you. Take the organization. Take everything. I'll leave Korea, I'll disappear, You'll watch, Daehan interrupted. That's what you'll do. Watch her die. Watch what happens when you try to be something you're not. Time froze. Amara looked at Minjun across the distance, 15 feet that might as well have been miles. Looked at the man she loved, the man who'd helped her heal, who'd given her a life worth living. And she made a choice. I love you, she said clearly. Whatever happens, I want you to know I love you. You gave me everything. Don't let this break you. Tears streamed down Minjun's face. Amara. I mean it. Don't let him win. Don't become him. Promise me. I promise, he whispered. Daehan chambered around. And then, a voice cut through the chaos. Seoul Metropolitan Police. Drop your weapons. Now. Everyone froze. 20 police officers poured into the street, weapons drawn, surrounding the scene. Behind them, news cameras. Reporters. Witnesses with phones out, recording everything. Daehan's face twisted with rage. No. No, I planned this perfectly, how did? You made one mistake, Hyungnim, Minjun said, his voice steady now. You assumed I was alone in this. He nodded toward the police captain, a woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and hard eyes. Captain Shin has been investigating you for 3 months. Everything you've done, the escape, the bribes, the murders, all documented. All admissible in court. You set me up, Daehan breathed. No. You set yourself up. Minjun took a step forward. I just made sure everyone was watching when you pulled the trigger. For a long moment, Daehan didn't move. The gun was still pressed to Amara's head, his finger on the trigger. Then Captain Shin spoke. Kong Daehan, you're surrounded. There are 50 witnesses and 20 cameras. If you pull that trigger, you'll spend the rest of your life in prison. But if you surrender now, you might see daylight again before you're 70. He destroyed our family. Daehan shouted. He took what was mine. He took nothing, Captain Shin said calmly. Your father chose him. Because you, she gestured at the carnage around them, the injured people, the terrified civilians, are exactly this. Violence without purpose. Anger without control. Dehan's hand started shaking. The gun wavered. And Amara, seeing her chance, drove her elbow backward into his stomach with all her strength. Dehan gasped, his grip loosening just enough. Amara rolled away, scrambling toward Minjun. 3 officers tackled Dehan before he could fire. And then Minjun's arms were around her, solid and real and safe, and Amara collapsed into him, shaking, crying alive. "I've got you," he murmured into her hair. "I've got you, Jagia. You're safe. You're safe." The police station was freezing and fluorescent bright and smelled like bad coffee and bureaucracy. Amara sat wrapped in a blanket someone had given her, Minjun beside her, their hands intertwined. Jaiwa stood nearby, bandaged but alive. 2 of Minjun's men had been injured, one seriously, but everyone had survived. On the other side of the station, visible through glass windows, Dehan sat in an interrogation room. Handcuffed. Defeated. Their eyes met across the distance. And Amara felt nothing. No fear. No anger. Just a quiet acknowledgement that this broken man had tried to destroy her and failed. "Mrs. Kong." Captain Shin approached, holding a tablet. "I need your statement. Are you able to speak now?" "Yes." For the next hour, Amara recounted everything. The phone call from Clarissa, who turned out to be in on it, paid by Dehan to lure them out. The ambush. The gun to her head. "And you're certain you want to press charges?" Captain Shin asked. "Every single one available." "Good." The captain smiled grimly. "Because we have enough to put him away for the rest of his life. Attempted murder, kidnapping, conspiracy, weapons charges. He'll never see the outside of a prison cell again." After she left, Minjun turned to Amara. "There's something else," he said quietly. "What?" "When we were investigating Dehan's activities, we found something. Someone he'd been in contact with." Amara's stomach dropped. "Who?" "Marcus Wellington." The name felt like a slap. "He was there," Minjun continued. "At the station. Watching. Dehan paid him $50,000 to help set up the trap." Rage flooded through Amara, pure and hot and righteous. "Where is he?" "In custody. He'll be charged as an accessory to attempted murder." "I want to see him." "Amara." "I want to see him," she repeated, her voice hard. "I want him to see me. Alive. Victorious. Everything he tried to destroy, everything he failed to break." Minjun studied her face for a long moment. Then he stood, spoke to Captain Shin, and 5 minutes later, Amara was being led to a different interrogation room. Marcus sat inside, looking nothing like the confident man from the gala. His expensive clothes were rumpled, his hair messy, his face haggard. When Amara walked in, he looked up with something like hope. "Amara, thank God. Tell them this is a mistake. Tell them I didn't know what Dehan was planning, I was just—" "You were just trying to watch me die," Amara said coldly, sitting down across from him. "For $50,000. You sold me out to a man who wanted to kill me." Again. Marcus's face crumpled. "I was desperate. You ruined my life." "No." Amara leaned forward. "You ruined your own life. For years ago, you stole from me, abandoned me, caused me to lose our daughter. I survived that. I rebuilt. I thrived. That was all me. And last week, my husband ruined you because you assaulted me at a charity gala. You did that. You put your hands on me. You humiliated me. And he made you pay. I lost everything." "Good." Amara's voice was ice. "Now you know how it feels. Now you know what you did to me when I was pregnant and alone and terrified. Now you understand." Marcus stared at her, something breaking in his expression. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "God, Amara, I'm so sorry. I was stupid and selfish and cruel, and I destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me." "Yes, you did. Can you ever forgive me?" Amara was quiet for a long moment, looking at this man who'd once been everything to her. This man who'd taken her trust and her love and her money and left her with nothing. "No," she said finally. "I can't forgive you. But I can let you go. I can stop letting you live rent-free in my head. I can move on with my life, my beautiful, full, happy life, and leave you in my past where you belong." She stood, moved toward the door. Amara, wait. She paused, looked back over her shoulder. You'll be convicted as an accessory to attempted murder. Captain Shin says you'll serve at least 5 years. After that, she shrugged. I hope you find a way to be a better person. I hope you learn from this. I hope you never hurt anyone else the way you hurt me. But I'm done. I'm done being your victim, your regret, your excuse. I'm done with you completely. I wish things had been different, Marcus said, his voice breaking. I don't, Amara replied. Because if things had been different, I wouldn't have come to Seoul. I wouldn't have met Minjun. I wouldn't have become who I am now. She smiled, genuine and warm and free. So thank you, Marcus Wellington, for being the worst thing that ever happened to me. Because that worst thing led me to the best thing. She walked out without looking back. Outside the interrogation room, Minjun was waiting. He took one look at her face and pulled her into his arms. How do you feel? Free, Amara said. For the first time in 4 years, completely free. Ready to go home? More than ready. As they walked out of the police station into the Seoul night, Amara realized something. She'd spent so long running from her past, from Marcus, from poverty, from loss, that she'd forgotten to appreciate her present. But standing beside Minjun, his hand warm in hers, bodyguards flanking them like an honor guard, the city lights reflecting off the Han River in the distance. This was her present. And it was beautiful. 6 months later, Seoul was in full bloom. Cherry blossoms lined the streets, petals falling like snow, tourists and locals alike stopping to take photos and make wishes. The city felt alive, vibrant, full of possibility. Amara stood in front of a glass building in Gangnam, looking up at the sign above the door. Minjun came up beside her, slipping his hand into hers. You ready? She nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. They'd been planning this for months. A foundation for women who'd experienced what she had: financial abuse, intimate partner violence, pregnancy loss. A place that offered housing, job training, legal assistance, therapy, childcare. Everything Amara had needed and never had. Named for the daughter she'd lost, built with the money Marcus had been forced to pay back, $127,000, plus interest, plus damages, plus compensation from Dehan's seized assets. Amara had taken every penny and poured it into this building, this dream, this way of turning her worst pain into someone else's salvation. The ribbon-cutting ceremony was small, just friends, some hospital colleagues, Captain Shin, and a few reporters. Minjun had wanted to make it a huge event, invite everyone important, but Amara had refused. This isn't about publicity, she'd said. It's about women who need help finding a place that will give it to them. Now, standing in front of those doors with scissors in her hand, she thought about the woman she'd been 4 years ago. Broken. Homeless. Hopeless. And she thought about the woman she was now. Healed. Empowered. Happy. This foundation exists, she said, her voice carrying in the spring air, because I know what it's like to have nothing. To sleep in your car. To lose a baby because you couldn't afford prenatal care. To think you'll never be whole again. But I also know that with support, with resources, with someone believing in you, you can survive. You can rebuild. You can thrive. She looked at Minjun, who was watching her with so much love in his eyes it made her chest ache. My husband taught me that broken things can be made more beautiful for having shattered. That scars are proof you survived. That second chances are real. So this building, she gestured behind her, is for every woman who needs a second chance. Who needs someone to say, you matter. Your pain is valid. Your future is worth fighting for. She cut the ribbon. Applause erupted. And as the doors opened, as the first residents began moving in, women of all ages, all backgrounds, all carrying their own stories of survival, Amara felt something she'd been chasing for 4 years finally settle in her chest. Peace. The annual gathering of the 5 families was held in a traditional hanok in Bukshan, all paper screens and wooden beams and careful formality. Amara had been dreading it. These gatherings were where the major crime organizations in Seoul, now mostly legitimate businesses with complicated pasts, met to discuss territory, resolve disputes, maintain peace. It was also where Minjun would officially accept his position as head of the Kong family, no longer contested, no longer questioned. Daehan was in prison. His supporters had scattered. The organization was unified behind Minjun. But tradition demanded the ceremony. Amara wore a custom hanbok in deep emerald green, her hair styled in an elegant updo, the diamond and emerald ring on her finger catching the light. She looked like a queen. She felt like an imposter. "You belong here," Minjun murmured as they entered the hanok. "You're my wife. My partner. The woman who helped me become the man I'm supposed to be. I'm a nurse from Baltimore who used to sleep in a Honda Civic. You're a survivor. A warrior. A queen." He kissed her temple. "And anyone who doesn't see that is a fool." The ceremony was long and formal, full of speeches in Korean that Amara only partially understood. But she caught the important parts. Minjun's formal acceptance of leadership. The other family's acknowledgement. The promises of peace and cooperation. And then, unexpectedly, one of the older bosses, a man named Han who controlled the shipping industry, spoke directly to Amara in English. "Mrs. Kong, I understand you've opened a foundation for women in crisis." "Yes, sir. My granddaughter." He paused, emotion flickering across his weathered face. "She experienced something similar to what you did. A bad man. A stolen future. She tried to die because of it." "I'm sorry," Amara said quietly. "She's at your foundation now. Living there. Getting help. And last week, she called me for the first time in 2 years. Said she's starting to feel human again." His eyes met Amara's across the room. "Thank you. For saving her life." Amara's throat tightened. She saved her own life. "I just gave her a place to do it." "That's what makes you worthy," Han said. "Not your husband's power. Not your status. Your compassion. Your strength. Your choice to turn pain into purpose." He bowed, deep and formal, the kind of bow reserved for equals. Around the room, one by one, the other family heads did the same. Acknowledging her. Accepting her. Welcoming her into a world she'd never imagined being part of. And Amara realized she'd earned this. Not through marriage. Not through luck. Through survival. Through choosing to heal instead of break. Through becoming someone who helped others rise instead of pushing them down. That night, back in their penthouse, Amara stood in the same doorway where everything had started 2 years ago. The bedroom where Minjun had walked in that first week they'd known each other, when she'd been staying as a guest after helping him, when everything between them had been new and uncertain. He came up behind her now, wrapping his arms around her waist, his chin resting on her shoulder. "What are you thinking about? How different everything is. How impossible this all seems. Does it feel real yet?" She turned in his arms, looking up at the man who'd somehow become her home. "It feels like a dream I'm afraid to wake up from." "Then let me make sure you know you're awake." He kissed her soft and slow and full of promise. And Amara kissed him back, pouring everything she felt into the gesture. Gratitude, love, hope, joy. When they pulled apart, she rested her forehead against his. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For seeing me. For choosing me. For showing me that love doesn't have to hurt." "Thank you," he replied, "for saving my life. And I don't just mean in the ER. I mean every day since. You made me human again." They stood there in the doorway, holding each other, the Seoul skyline glittering behind them through floor-to-ceiling windows. Two broken people who'd found each other across impossible circumstances. Two survivors who'd chosen to heal together. Two souls who'd learned that the worst moments of your life can lead you to the best ones. "I love you," Amara said. "I love you too," Minjun replied. Forever. And for the first time in 4 years, maybe in her entire life, Amara believed in forever. Because she'd survived Marcus Wellington. Survived Kang Daehan. Survived poverty and loss and grief that should have destroyed her. And she'd done more than survive. She'd thrived. She'd built a life worth living, a love worth keeping, a future worth fighting for. She was home. Finally, completely, perfectly home. As they stood in that doorway, Minjun's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned. "What is it?" Amara asked. "Message from Captain Shin. She says." He paused, his expression darkening. "She says there was an incident at the prison where Daehan is being held. What kind of incident? Dehan's been transferred to the medical wing. Someone attacked him. He's in critical condition. Amara's stomach dropped. Who would? She doesn't know. But whoever it was left a message carved into the wall of his cell. What did it say? Minjun showed her the phone. A photo of prison wall, blood-red letters. The Kong family debt isn't paid. Amara looked up at Minjun, saw the same realization in his eyes. Your father, she said quietly. He had other enemies. Other families he destroyed. And they're coming for revenge. For a moment, silence hung between them. Then Amara straightened, lifted her chin, met her husband's eyes with steel in her own. Let them come, she said. We've survived worse. Together. Minjun smiled, dark and proud and absolutely certain. Together, he agreed. Because Amara Johnson, no, Amara Kong, wasn't the broken woman who'd arrived in Seoul 3 years ago. She was a survivor. A warrior. A queen. And anyone who underestimated her would learn exactly what that meant. And that, my friends, is how a woman who lost everything became a woman who has it all. If you loved Amara and Minjun's story, please smash that like button. Subscribe to Revenge Cafe for more Afro-Korean romance stories. Drop a comment telling me, what was your favorite moment? Should I do a part 2 with the revenge plot coming for them? What kind of story should I tell next? Forbidden love? Secret baby? Revenge plot? Another mafia romance? To everyone watching, remember this. Your past doesn't define your future. Your pain can become your purpose. And you are always, always worthy of love, respect, and a second chance. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, stay strong, stay hopeful, and remember, you're not just surviving, you're thriving. See you in the next video. Heartsuit.